Hi, in this video I interview Travis Moore, who is an amazing producer. He's a worship leader. He's got a great ear and does a great job with production. He mixed the Broward Worship album that just came out. He's mixed several of my Ties to the Light tunes that have been released, and he does a lot of his own music. So we talk in this video about worship ministry, the connection between faith and art, some of the projects that Travis is doing. He's the one that produced all of the videos the Denver church put out during lockdown that a lot of our churches in the fellowship of churches I'm a part of shared and used. And it's just a great conversation about how the interaction between our faith and our devotion to Jesus and the art that we produce and put out in the world. So I hope you'll enjoy this interview with Travis Moore. All right, Travis Moore, good to see you, bro.
Hey, good to see you.
Thanks for joining me. And if you're watching this, Travis is an amazing musician and producer and worship leader. And we've gotten to do a few projects together. And I'm trying to remember when I first met you. I think I first met you, you were doing some music downtown Denver when there was that little downtown Denver thing. Did you ever
Yeah,
do
yeah.
anything at the Tivoli down there? Like, were you in
hmm
college then?
Yeah, I went to school at CU Denver.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I
So the
remember we
first time
went to the
I
same
met
school.
you, yes, we did go to the same school.
Yeah.
First time I met you is not the first time you met me,
Oh, okay.
because I met you in 2009 at there was a leadership conference here, and I just like walked up and like Brian's the man. I got to meet him, and
Oh,
and
that's cool.
I talked to you for a little bit, but then I think the time you're thinking of is probably after that when we were in the thick of the city ministry when we had that around, and I was leading the worship there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
that's
think
awesome.
that's the time you're remembering. So
Yeah, and we got to do a couple things, and then I do music. I've kind of dabbled here doing some music that's non-worship related under a name Ties to the Light, which I'm up to like 10 subscribers on Spotify now.
nice, probably beating me.
But Travis has mixed some of that music and helped a lot. Been a great resource because, with worship music, I've always been more of a songwriter than kind of producer, singer. What it was more about sharing the song. So even when I would record worship music, it was just let me just make it quick and dirty to get it out so people can hear it and sing it. So especially the older stuff, is pretty brutal to listen back to for myself and other trained ears. Even though it's everybody's favorite stuff to listen to, it's kind of God's little way of putting a knife in my perfectionist pride there. But
Right.
this other stuff, I really wanted it to be excellent, and Travis makes amazing recordings and really good stuff. I'm sure we'll talk about that. So he's
Thank
been
you.
a great resource for me through the years, and so I'm excited to get to talk to him. So yeah. So anything you want to say by way of introduction, Travis? I want to ask you a little more, but how would you normally introduce yourself to somebody like at a conference or something if you're talking meeting another worship leader or something?
Yeah, I would say that I'm a music producer, music maker. So I do producing and writing and mixing and collaborating in all kinds of formats. And so that's usually where I lead off, and that can lead off into my rock band or my folk pop band or my rock producer project. All of those, and then all that's just kind of like is fuel for what worship can be at the same time. And I've done lots of different roles in the worship realm. So that's where I start off, and then we launch into a conversation.
Yeah, that's awesome. And give me a few quick bullet points on your status right now. You're married. You live in Denver. You're working. No kids yet, or kids?
You nailed all of it. Yeah. My wife and I live here in Denver, like 15 minutes from downtown, which is amazing. I work a full-time job at the Denver Art Museum, which is super fun, and doing all the music on the side. I was just saying, like, I do my 40 at work, and then it's either like hanging out with my wife or doing music, and it's
That's
super
awesome.
fun. Like you said, no kids, but we have a cat,
Nice.
little orange cat.
And where are you like in proximity to downtown? I know you said 15 minutes, but which part of Denver?
Southwest of
Okay.
downtown. So yeah, actually when we do our congregational services, it's at a park called Ruby Hill Park, which is like 7-minute walk from my house, which is awesome.
That's super cool. And what do you do for the Denver Art Museum?
I'm the audiovisual coordinator.
Oh, that's cool.
So microphones, lights, projection, camera, whatever they need.
That's really awesome. Yeah, you were doing that for like hotels and venues and stuff for a while, right? Other kinds of space, and gave you the in for that.
Yeah, I did about 7 years freelance as an audiovisual technician, and the art museum was one of the places I worked, and so it was a very natural in to the full-time job. That was great.
That's cool.
I'm glad to sort of like wave goodbye to the freelance lifestyle, have a little more limited focus in my emotions. So it's like my bandwidth is only in 3 places now, not like 10.
That's cool. Yeah, I was telling Travis before we started recording, Denver Art Museum is one of my favorite places in the world. As a teenager, I just loved to go there. And I was actually more into visual arts than music when I was in high school. I was into both, but I started out as a fine arts major in college. And always loved painting, and I just loved sit and look at some of those big paintings there and stuff. And it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
cool
so
spot.
it's awesome. So give us the like quick version of how you became a Christian, how you became a follower of Jesus. What's kind of
Yeah,
your background
sure.
there?
I mean, I grew up in a Christian household, so like I knew about Jesus. I was faithful in that sense. And then
Hmm.
when I left high school, went to college, I was moving to Denver, which is 5 hours from my hometown, and I was just like, I'm ready for something new, a new spiritual growth, new spiritual journey, and just like for the whole college thing, like let's do this, let's live it up.
Hmm.
Which was cool because I was very much looking for it, looking for God, and walking around campus, I found a couple of Christian groups, and one of them happened to be a part of our group, campus ministry here, and it was amazing. Just like people who could be the hand of God, loving me in the way that I needed it, showing me the scriptures that I'd never seen before that I needed, and just like got to that point where you're overwhelmed. You're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Am I even like a real person anymore? I don't know what's happening. And
Yeah,
then it sort of hit me in that moment that God had answered my prayer, what I'd been hoping all summer for. And I was just like, whoa, okay, I'm in, like blown away. Even though I'd grown up faithful, I knew I wasn't a true Christian. And so I was like, let's do this. I'm in, whatever it means. I'm going to get baptized. I'm going to follow God. Here we are.
that's
So
awesome.
that's the short version. That was 2008, my freshman year in college.
Awesome. And that was at CU Denver.
Yep.
That's great. I love that school. I love that. So my job, I had two jobs that I gave up to move out here to LA. We've been out here almost 30 years, but we were asked to move out here to help with kind of the forming of the LA church. It was still new, and they needed
Mm.
some people to help kind of bolster it up, and especially help with like song leading and stuff like that. But I had my dream job. I was the the manager of the recording studio on campus there,
Oh
and
yeah.
so I would check in all the gear and check it out, and then I had the keys, so I would go like late at night and record. And at that time it was like 2-inch tape, and you'd mix down to 1/4 inch tape and all that. It was kind of the technology, but it was really cool to have access to, and a lot of really cool stuff and really cool professors there. And
Mm.
so that was my main job, and then I kept my job on the 16th Street Mall at the Gap, working 1 day a week so I could get the discount for all my
Smart. Smart. Good
clothes and my
thinking.
Christmas gifts. So it was a sacrifice to move to LA and give that up and work as a room service waiter instead, because I loved that job.
Right.
That's cool. And you said you were 5 hours away. Where was that you grew up?
Small town called Pagosa Springs,
Okay,
Southwest Colorado. Yeah, great place to be from. My dad still lives there. We go visit, and it's a wonderful mountain town.
that's
Um,
cool.
but I got swallowed up by the city. I was just like, I love this. I'm here.
Yeah, living downtown is really fun. I lived downtown for a couple years. It's really fun.
Yeah.
It's very fun. I grew up in Pueblo, so and moved to Denver in high school. So I maybe not as small, but still a little bit small town,
Right.
Colorado feel. So what's been your musical journey, and tell us about some of the projects you're doing now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, going back all the way, sort of, I picked up guitar when I was 6. My dad would play like Ted Nugent and Rush songs on his guitar. And my brother started playing, my older brother. And so I was just like, I want to do that too. So I started learning when I was 11. I was like, I'm in. This is what I really want to do. Put my time and effort into. Um, so guitar was like it, but I also grew up playing saxophone, picked up drums at some point in high school and college.
That's
and I
cool.
started recording in high school as well. So I remember a cross country coach said, if you never want to work a day in your life, get a job that you love. And I was
Mm,
sitting there working on a recording, which like there's a lot of energy and fun in those things, but they're not that good. It's high
mm,
school Travis. And I was just sitting there thinking like I could do this the rest of my life and be happy. So then that just led me down a path of could I go to school for recording? And I found there was one college in Colorado that had a recording program,
mm-hmm.
EU Denver. Luckily, I got in, and I think God was orchestrating it to get me to Denver, away from people I knew, and just like a whole new start on life in that sense. Um, but yeah, I went to college, and I was kind of like, okay, buy sports, buy like everything else.
Mm.
I'm a music guy now, and started doing that. Got a degree in music production, and from there, I feel like I've gotten 3 or 4 more degrees in just the amount of time and effort that I've spent putting into learning more recording, more songwriting, more production aspects, more collaborating. And so I've just done that since then. Um, I've got a few different projects I'm a part of. One of them I launched in 2014 is a rock band called Always on My Mind. And so
Mm.
that's sort of like alternative rock, like 21 Pilots or Fall Out Boy, even 30
Yeah, I've
Seconds.
heard a lot of that, and you use the initials, don't you?
We
Like
used
on the
to.
artwork. Okay,
Yeah, we used to, but like AOM is not a word. So
okay.
we went
I
back
just
to
remember
always
some
on
of the artwork.
my
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So that's a project that I mean we put our heart and soul into that and it's a lot of fun. It's very much just like that's who me and Josh are, is those rock kids, you know.
Mm.
So that's a lot of that. And then another project that started up after is called Wild Goose Chase. And so that's like a folk pop or blues pop kind of band. And
Yeah.
maybe some of y'all know Dr. Ross Henderson, the singing veterinarian. And he's just like, this guy's insane. He's so charismatic and he's so prolific. He'll write a song. Like we were working on a song one day and I put a 90-minute stop so I could take a break. And I just collapsed on the couch. And his break in that 10 minutes was to open Logic up a new session and write a brand new song. And I came back downstairs, I was like, dude, like, what's are you even real? Like, are you a robot? What's happening here? So super fun being with him. He's so bluesy, so musical, great voice.
Yeah.
Um,
And he leads
and
worship for the Denver church too, right?
yeah, he's
Saw
in
him
the
with a
North.
tiny guitar one time there, like a really little guitar. I don't know
Yeah,
if he always uses that, but it was like because he's kind of big, right?
yeah, he's huge. He's like 6'5".
And his guitar just seemed really small in
Yeah, he's got a
comparison.
little one. So he's one person in the band, and then Julia Dunn is in the band,
Yeah,
and she's also leads worship, and she's crazy prolific as well. She'll just write a
that's great.
song and send it over and be like, okay, there's like a new one. Awesome. Good
That's cool.
job. And then another day goes by and there's another song. Um, so those two, they handle vocal duties and songwriting, and it's really fun to be a part of. And then Tyler Bedell, who I think he's the official worship leader in the North region of the
Mm-hmm.
for church. He's drumming and singing in the band. And I think Tyler and I just try to keep up with Ross and Julia, really.
Hmm.
But I came in as Swiss Army knife. I'd say that's kind of how I live my life, as being in my career and in music and whatever. I try to be a Swiss Army knife. So they're like, Travis, you do everything. Come play with us. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll play drums, I'll play bass, I'll play guitar, play whatever you need me to play. I've got it.
So did you play? I hate to interrupt you, but that I was listening to. So I had heard the 6 Feet Apart song before,
Mhm.
and that's very like was timely at the time. It's funny because
Right.
it captured the spirit of everybody was together and we're all gonna beat this thing together, and it was like before everybody just hated each other. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it was kind of refreshing to go back. Oh, I remember those days.
Yeah.
But I heard some of the other stuff I hadn't heard. You sent me the new song, which
Mhm.
was really cool. Which is called what again? Uh,
The newest one is Runaway.
Runaway. Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
really great song. And then I hadn't heard that one. Is it called Work It Out or something like that?
Work with me.
Work with Me. Yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
was that was an awesome song. I hadn't heard that before. And I was going to ask you, was that your guitar work on there? It was like such great tone.
No, that's Ross.
Oh, it was really beautiful tone.
Yeah.
And then the drums on there were those samples or were those live drums? You had like little cool snare work and stuff.
Yeah, that was just plugging in like an electric drum set into
Uh huh.
Logic.
Okay.
and working with the Logic sounds. And then I'm not content to just let it be there. I'll start putting other things in there, adding other
Yeah.
textures and tones, and even other sounds that Tyler didn't play, other like percussion-y things. So
Yeah, those were great sounds on that song.
yeah,
And then the fourth single you released, what was that one again?
Before You Go.
Oh yeah, that's a great one too.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
my
that.
favorite that we released so
I
far.
love that one. Yeah. I love the unexpected chorus, like the change in groove in the chorus.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of goes to halftime feel. It's
Mhm.
really cool. I love that song.
Yeah, that's where you can hear me playing the guitar part. Bum, bum, bam, bum, ba, dum, dum, dum,
Okay.
at
Oh yeah, the
halftime.
little muted things, like the
Yeah,
little police muted stuff.
exactly.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then I interrupted you, but you were going to talk about you have another project too, right?
Oh yeah, my other project is called Tough Tough. And
Yeah, I
so
hadn't heard about
this,
that.
yeah, this is newer. I launched it this year. The idea is to do like the EDM producer thing, like
Okay.
Zed or Marshmello or whoever, where they're the artists and they're producing the songs, but they always have a featured artist on the song. And so
Mm.
I thought that would be really fun. Here's the secret about me is I don't actually sing. Like I'm not a
Hmm.
good singer. And I'm aware of it and it's okay. So instead I thought, what if I just hang out with really cool rock artists who I like, work on songs together when we release it under the Tough Tough name.
Cool.
So it's a rock focused version of the EDM producer thing.
Gotcha. So it'll
Yeah,
always have a featured
exactly.
and you'll move around to different people. That's cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. Slowly building that one up too.
That's awesome. Are there other ones I'm missing?
No, that'll do it.
Those are the main
Aside from
three.
just like me being a producer, mixer, or collaborator for whoever wants to work with me.
That's cool. And if you want to listen to this stuff, I really encourage you to look for it. If you Google it, you'll find it, or look for it on Spotify, any of the streaming platforms, right? YouTube.
Yep, it's all there.
Is there a particular best way to get a hold of you if somebody wants to collaborate? Like, do
Yeah,
you
they
have
can
a
reach
website?
out. Instagram is at toughtough.music. It's TUFF. And then I do have a website too, travislmoore.com.
Moore.
Correct. Yeah.
Nice. And then, so just to kind of get a little more philosophical, as you're doing all these projects and you're a disciple of Jesus, how does your faith interact with your art? Like, how do you kind of view the relationship between those two, or what's the interaction for you between
Yeah,
faith
that's a great question. And breaking the fourth wall, Brian sent this question to me in advance, and I thought, oh man, we're going deep here.
and
Um, a story that I thought of was being a kid, something like 6 years old, and I'd gone to church with my mom in Texas, and there was this guy, worship leader, who was just like jumping around on stage, like giving it his all, very energetic, wild, all over the stage. And so I picked that up, like, oh, that's how you worship God.
mm,
And then went back. I was back at my dad's house, and Sunday morning he turned on a hymn CD, like all a cappella hymns, while he's cooking breakfast on a Sunday morning. And I was like, I want to worship. So I started jumping all over the house and just like flopping around doing stuff. And he looks at me, he's like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm worshiping God. And he's like, no, no, no. Let's talk about something a little more substantive here. And he was just telling me that uh, worshiping God is about excellence. It's about doing our
mm,
best. So he was like, I'm worshiping God by taking care of my family, by making these pancakes so that my family can eat and putting my all into it, doing a good job. So jumping around wildly isn't necessarily worshiping God, but putting your all into it, doing
mm,
your best and being excellent is worshiping God. And so that's something that's carried on with me since that time when I was roughly 6 years old. And I just try to put that into everything that I'm doing, whether it's a worship thing or something outside of it with one of my bands or projects or working with a collaborator. I feel like if I can just put my all into it and be
mm.
excellent, that's where God can take it and run with it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Do you feel like there are moments like as a worship leader, if you're doing let's say, you have to craft your art for the needs of the church a little bit, right? So
right.
it might not be um the art that you would necessarily like, but it's like this is serving the congregation. Like maybe it's a simpler song, or it's like a song that you're tired of, but the church likes, or it'll, how do you kind of navigate that if you feel like this isn't really or maybe you just can't do it excellently, like you don't have the tools, like a lot of our churches, maybe they don't have the equipment they would like to have, or they don't have, they don't have a space where they can stay set up permanently. They've got to set up every week, and so it's like, how do I be excellent but still have it, you know what I mean? Like how do I slap it together but still have it be worship,
Right, yeah. You kind of asked three questions in there, but
Yeah.
um I'm all about actually I'm probably the worst musician from a musician's perspective. Like artists who are out in artist land wear me out. I'm just like, come on, let's be real here. I'm
Yeah.
more of an end user
More
experience kind of person.
pragmatic.
Totally pragmatic. And so,
So that would be like the commercial art, world, rather than the kind of just get into weird art kind of world. If it was visual arts, maybe.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm sympathetic to being in the congregation and thinking like, man, this song's hard to sing.
Yeah.
Like, my voice is tired. I can't hold
Yeah.
this note anymore. Like those kinds of things. Or even just like this feeling isn't working. Like we all feel awkward here.
Uh-huh.
No, so I
Cringy
feel
moment. Yeah.
right. We're all feeling it here. So I'm sympathetic to that for sure, which I think keeps me from being too self-indulgent on the other side of the microphone.
Mm.
And I know that I've got to get me out of the way as much as possible and just here as a vessel so that God can do his thing. And so like that, if you have that philosophy, I think that carries a long way. But pragmatically, how do you do that? I think a couple of things are really important. One is simpler is going to be better almost always.
Yeah.
And you learn that in pop music. Just like keep it simple, The
Mm-hmm.
rule of three is something we could talk about as far as like arrangement choices and that kind of thing. And then the other thing is to lean into your strengths.
Yeah.
And I think having done sound for a lot of different churches around town, you find most churches are trying to sound like stadium anthemic worship,
Yeah.
Hillsong or whatever that group may be.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There are those songs that I like, and that's amazing. But if you're not in a stadium and you don't have a 15-piece band, then you're not going to sound like that, even with backing tracks.
Yeah.
Because I usually don't even turn the backing tracks up that loud anyway, because they're hard to balance with the mix. So it's kind of
Yeah.
let it be in there a little. So instead, I think if you're able to lean into your strengths
Yeah.
and keep it simple and do what and that excellence.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. So put a pin in rule of three, because I want to ask you what that is. But then what you just said about leaning into your strengths just sparked a thought for me, because we just came from this conference that a lot of us went to in our family of churches in Orlando. It was really amazing. There was some worship leaders that did an incredible job putting it together. Jason Saunders from Broward was doing a lot of stuff. He was the musical director the first half of the week, and then Ross Lippincott the second half put it all together. Ralph Beerhorst from Chicago was the MD, but it was really amazing. But it was this huge stage and huge production. There's 3 keyboard players, 2 acoustic guitar players, 2 electric players. You know what I mean? Like, it was top-notch musicians. It was really awesome, and it was fun. I got to play, I was the older guy on the side with the acoustic,
You looked very happy being that
it
older
was
guy.
fun though. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to see the younger people kind of taking ownership and everything. But it's like conference worship like that is fun, but it's not like, this is not where we live. And so sometimes I think people who are in smaller churches, most of our churches are small in our fellowship of churches, the International Churches of Christ, and most churches in America are small. And so
Right.
most people can't do that stadium rock, and
Yep.
and so that's not something that we even want to try to do. I mean, some churches, Broward is a bigger church. They meet, 700, 800 people or whatever every Sunday. But even here in the LA Church of Christ, like we didn't meet together for 5 or 6, 7, 8 years. It's not a big church. It's like my local group is 200,
Right.
and so I think it's important to try to, how can we do stuff simple and have it still be really great.
Hmm.
At the conference, there was a a breakout session I was a part of where with a bunch of church leaders, and these the couple that lead the church in Berlin were talking about how the Spirit had been working to call them to plant a church in Frankfurt, Germany, and they had some footage of that, and they were meeting at a park, and they had one guy who could sing songs, do worship songs on the guitar, and and then there was this guy who was visiting, and he had just graduated from music school, and he played accordion. And so
Nice.
on this video, you have the guy playing acoustic and singing, and then the guy playing accordion. And it was like the most beautiful worship music I ever heard. It was just so amazing. They were doing that
Yeah.
song by Mikey W. Smith, Breathe, and
Cool.
those changes. Somehow those changes, those descending changes with that accordion, it sounded amazing. And then they did this song that I wrote a long time ago called Praise the Lord, O My Soul. And again, just that accordion and that acoustic. I want to get a copy of more of that footage, but it just reminded me of what you're saying is you can have really incredible worship with just a couple instruments, or one instrument, and or just a few singers, a
Yeah,
few
if I could
mix.
I expand on that a little?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, when I led the city ministry, the worship team there, any given week we could have between two people on stage up to like 12 people on stage. And so it was my job to learn how to make each group function musically,
mm,
effectively, and dynamically. And so there's ways of perhaps you don't play for half of the song, and then when you come in, there's an impact.
yeah,
Um, or just the way that you're playing, you can adjust, it's softer in the verses and harder in the choruses, like those kinds of things. But we can lean into our strengths and learn how to work with each of those groups. So one day it was me on acoustic and a kick drum. I was like, if Mumford can do it, I can do it.
yeah,
And I had one singer who it was like my C team singer. Like all the A team
mm,
was gone, the B team was gone. I had one singer who usually played percussion and me with a guitar. And I thought, oh man, what are we gonna do? But it worked because we could work to our strengths there.
that's cool.
And then we could go up bigger if we needed to, or when we had more people with the keyboard and three guitars and drums and bass and five
Yeah,
singers and still work together to be musical and dynamic.
yeah. It seems like we're getting better at that in our churches a little bit better at kind of being flexible, like you're saying,
Mm.
and able to expand smaller, bigger. But
Yeah.
that's cool. That's inspiring. So on this, so we talked about worship in the church, but as far as, I mean, music in the church, but as far as music, these other projects you're doing, that's kind of for a broader audience. You're trying to sort of have an impact in the world.
Mm.
What goes into your mind with that kind of stuff? Are you thinking, is it like what's going to sell? Is it what I like? Is it just, hey, let's just have fun and see what happens? What's your kind of thought process with that? Because I'm dabbling in that a little bit, but just curious what your thoughts are with that, with some of those projects, how it's different.
Yeah. I think it still comes back to the excellence thing.
Hmm.
Um, if I'm putting my best into it and doing my best to be excellent, God can use that in lots of ways that we may not even expect or plan for, if you will.
Yeah,
Whether that's I'm a musician or a band who's holding his own when it comes to all the other musicians and bands in the world who do nothing but music,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
not splitting their life into also church or also another job or whatever, but where you can stand in those circles and be someone who's respected, and then have influence in a personal way. I think that's really important. Obviously, there's the sense of I'm not just going to write anything
yeah,
lyrically, and there are themes that I wouldn't touch or I wouldn't feel comfortable putting out there. And I
yeah,
always kind of try to like one of my views is that God is a God of redemption. And
yeah.
so in a song, I always want to have some redemptive quality, even if
Mm,
it's an angry song or a mean song or a sad song or whatever it is, there's some element that I want to have that turn where there's a little bit of redemption, a little bit of
yeah,
light.
that's
And
great.
so those are just kind of philosophical things, I suppose.
That's cool. That's awesome. And so with excellence, so how many songs are you guys like on with Wild Goose? You said they're writing all these songs. How many of them are you rejecting, or you do just kind of compile them and just like let them simmer for a while, or because you've only released 4 singles so far, and they're all really amazing singles. So are you like being really discerning and just going, "Oh, we're only going to release the cream of the crop," or what? How are you kind of operating as a group with that?
That's a great question. And we're sort of in the infancy of even getting things finished for release. So a lot of my role is taking the wild recording and producing aspects that come from Ross and Julie and Tyler and sometimes myself, and making it make sense in a final product version so that we can release it. And at this point, it's just like there's 30 songs backed up. Let's pick the ones that we like and get it across the finish line.
Yeah. And are you planning just to keep doing singles, or are you gonna do albums?
I think singles. I think
That's
it
kind of
makes
the
sense.
world we're in nowadays. Cheryl Crow says she's never gonna release an album again. I was like, oh man,
That's what
I
I
love
mean. And
Cheryl Crow albums.
yeah, with Always on My Mind in 2018, we released one song every month for the entire year. And then we compiled that together as an album release.
Oh, okay,
So you can kind of,
that's the way to do it.
yeah, try to have our cake and bake it too, whatever
Yeah,
that
yeah,
phrase is.
yeah. Because it's all about product. It's all about content now, right? You got to keep
Mhm.
content going so people keep paying attention to you and all that.
And even the algorithms reward
Okay,
that too. So
okay, okay. Well, that's helpful to know. Yeah, I still love albums. I still love, you know, I love discovering those hidden gems that, the industry didn't like, but it's like, oh, I love that. You know what I mean?
right. Well, I
So
do. I listen to albums exclusively,
I
almost
still love
exclusively.
albums. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool. Well, I wanted to read you this quote because I on sabbatical I went on a 3 month sabbatical. I don't think we talked about it, but we've been serving in full time ministry for 22 years. So we got to take it wasn't like an emergency sabbatical, like we're about to crash and burn. It was like planned, strategic. We have a policy now where we get to do that every 7 years. So
cool.
it was really, really amazing. It was awesome. It was crazy to step away from just the week to weeks, even Sundays, being involved with what happens on Sundays. I can't remember how long it had been since I hadn't been involved in what was going on Sundays. Because even on vacation, I would still set it up and everything.
Yeah.
So to step away from 3 months was really awesome, and did a lot of reflection and praying and reading and hiking and being in nature. And it was really cool. But I read this book that was recommended to me by Dave Pachta called This Beautiful Truth. And the author is a really good um, I can't remember her name right now. She's a really gifted writer. Like, you read some books and it's like the content is great, and then you read a book and it's like, wow, her writing is itself beautiful. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
her writing is really good. But her whole thesis, she's wrestles with theodicy. She wrestles with the goodness of God, or all people have, and she herself suffers from OCD, like debilitating OCD, and she's had some hard stuff in her life, and her argument is that to know and fully experience God, it's beyond logic and reason. It's beyond just trying to figure it out. Like there's something mystical, right, about God, that just by nature of him being God, it's more
Mhm.
than just reason. Reason is important, and her argument is that art is part of that art and beauty is a way that we can encounter God, and even a way that we can wrestle with theodicy, the goodness of God. And even
Right.
just like Job, God doesn't even give Job a rational explanation. He just points to nature and, like all these creations.
Mhm.
And so she gives a lot of examples to support that, and it's really cool. But I love this quote here. She says, um, "Every work of art reaches out across the centuries, and each is a vision that casts a flame into the darkness. The wonder is that one great light wakes another. The song of one wakens the story of another. The story she told became the poem he made that kindled the painting in yet another's hands. Each is a work of obedience. No artist can cast their flame of vision without a twinge of fear that it will simply fade or even pass unseen. but each is also a work of generosity. Precious private worlds offered in a self forgetfulness that pushes aside vanity, insecurity, and perfectionist pride. There's just a lot I love about that quote, but one thing was just the way that art inspires art. And I know you're somebody that loves to consume art and loves to consume music, and like you'll get inspired by other artists. So I thought that was really cool, and I want to ask you about that. But then this part about it being the fear that it'll simply fade away, like, or that is it even going to matter? Um, that hit me, and then the perfectionist pride thing really hit me, because I think as I've learned more tools and learned how to be better at making recordings and stuff like that, and you've been part of helping me with that. I went from 2-inch tape to ADAT to Pro Tools to Logic or GarageBand, Logic. What I mean? I've had to learn all
Right.
these new things, and I feel like I know about 10% of what Logic can do. You know what I mean? But I think found that I was being hindered by what she calls my perfectionist pride. Like I had all these songs. I had like 30 songs that I haven't recorded yet that maybe we sing as a church, but I just was waiting for the opportunity to make it perfect or get the right people to do it, and make it so. And so on not on vacation, but on sabbatical, I was like, I'm just gonna do some devotional recording, and so I recorded a whole album of like 16 songs that were just some of those songs that were more just worshipful songs. I played all the parts myself. It's like not going to be as good, but but it was really this quote that pushed me over the top, because I was like, okay, I can't, I have vanity, I have insecurity, I have perfectionist pride. I just need to let go of that and offer this, and offer this to God and to the world, regardless of what happens. Like from a secure place of yeah, it's okay. If people listen to it, cool. If they don't, that's cool too. And so anyway, I just thought I'd run that quote by you and see what your thoughts were.
Yeah, so much good in there. Side note, y'all should listen to Brian's album he just talked about. It's so good. He sent it to me before he released it. And the joy of working with Brian or listening to Brian's work is it's always good. There's never anything bad. He's been in this game so long that he knows how to write a song. He knows how to arrange. And so there's one song I didn't like, not because it wasn't good, I just subjectively didn't like it. But the
Yeah.
other 15 I really liked. So make sure you go listen to that. It's really good.
And Travis always gives me honest feedback, which I appreciate. He doesn't pull any punches. He's like, I could take or leave that one, which is great. Yeah.
But then when it's amazing, I'll let you know that's amazing
Yeah.
for sure. I love that thesis of that book that you're talking about, the something mystical in
Mm-hmm.
God and art is a part of that. I have this question everything mentality.
Mm.
And even though I love music and will continue to do it all the time, there are times when I wonder, like, why are we even doing this? Why do we even like music? I
Mm.
work at a major art museum. Why do we have 3 buildings in a city dedicated to showcasing art? Like,
Uh-huh.
what's the point here? And so
Yeah.
that actually adds more color and perspective to my own life and what I'm thinking and interacting with, and that art is the mystical, that part of God that's mystical that we may not be able to touch, and art gets us closer there. So I really like that.
Yeah, you should read it. It's really good. And it resonates with, I've experienced that, like, and it's not even always a worship song. I mean, like I've had moments where like a Coldplay song or a Sufjan Stevens song or a jazz song, or I heard this singer, is it Reba? Is that her name? Have you heard this singer? I think it's Reba. I might
I'm
be
not
saying
sure.
it wrong. Anyway, she has this Tiny Desk Concert, NPR Tiny Desk Concert,
Mhm.
and I heard, I heard she's just so good that it like brought tears to my eyes. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, man, and I love it when I'm moved like that.
Yeah,
And then if I can, and sometimes that is a part of being in a vulnerable or worshipful or kind of state of working through something with God, where I feel like God can use those things, or a movie, or a plot line, or something that just is like, wow, I feel like God is winking at me.
totally.
God is ministering to me with this. So that's really cool. So
Yeah.
go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
So many things I could say. The perfectionism thing, I have I've developed sort of philosophies or mechanisms to work against different things that keep us from being productive, if you will.
Yeah.
One of them is that like you got to be dedicated to the craft.
Hmm.
Don't wait for inspiration, but just like get your butt in the chair and start working. It's not
That's
about
good.
the inspiration, it's about the work. And then another thing is that when you're working with something like music, we're talking about a very, very subjective medium.
Yeah.
And because of that, there is no um, bullseye. There's no bullseye.
Yeah.
So you get it to 80%, which may be perfect for somebody. And it
Yeah.
may be way off the base for someone else, but it might be almost there for somebody. And so it's just kind of like get it to 80, and that's where the major benefits are going to come from. And
Yeah.
that last 20% is just going to drive you insane anyway. And since
Yeah.
you don't want to be insane, just be done with it and release it. Get it
Since you
out
don't want to
there.
be insane. Yeah.
Yeah, just get it to
Good.
80%. And I think that's a really good, it's a practical rule for yourself. It's a good way to get things out there. And then just emotionally, the most important person in the world to me, my wife, she likes about 50% of the music I make. She tolerates about 30% of it and she hates 20% of it. So I'm so far beyond like, will anyone like this? Is it going to fade? I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
like, it is what it is. Somebody could like this.
Yeah. Another thing I want to ask you about is not exactly related. Oh, tell me first, what's the rule of thirds thing that you talked about? I'm
Oh, yeah. Rule of
not
three.
sure
When you're
if I
talking
know that.
about,
A rule of three.
yeah, rule of three, when you're talking about music composition and the way that we can hear music, our brains kind of tap out at three distinct elements happening at the
Hmm.
same time. So if you've got a fourth or a fifth or a sixth, it's essentially becoming noise.
Hmm.
Discipline yourself to having only three elements at a time,
Wow.
then that's going to make an impactful arrangement that
Hmm.
will move an audience. And this is how you can learn to do better with what you have. Is just like if I have a voice and a guitar, that's only two elements. So that can work really well. But if I have seven members in a band, I have to either have people trading off, or if they're doing the same thing at the same time, that would count as one. So, like if the electric guitar and a keyboard and another keyboard and the bass all played the run at the same time, that would count as one element.
I see.
So if you can discipline yourself musically between all of the sounds to only have three distinct elements at a time, your
Yeah.
arrangements just become immediately better from a listener's perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really true. And that's something I wish I would have understood a long, long time ago. I came at like music from loving Peter Gabriel and U2 and these bands in the 80s that would just have so much layering, like they're just going over the top with the multi-tracking and I think they had the producers to pull it off. It sounds amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like the Peter Gabriel So album
Mhm.
still holds up. It's incredible. But there's so much like that song In Your Eyes, you know what I mean? Like there's so much stuff in that song. And
Right.
so when I would try to make my recordings, I would just record so many tracks, so many tracks. And then trying to wrangle that, it just ends up being challenging. It loses the impact. It doesn't
Right.
have the impact that you want. But then you notice, pop, really successful pop producers sometimes like that I think of that Bieber album that came out not too long ago, where it's just an electric guitar and Bieber singing. You know what I mean? Like that's it.
Perfect. Yeah.
And it's like, it's not that they couldn't hire a drummer. You know what I mean? Like they got
Yeah.
plenty of resources. It's just it didn't need it. And so
Right.
just learning to be more restrained. It's hard for me. I'm trying to learn that. Even on this album, I was like, that I was telling you about during quarantine, I was like, I'm just gonna do acoustic guitar, just like because I love stuff like that, like just
Mhm.
folky, like Iron and Wine. I love just that folky stuff in my life right now. That's just simple, and
Yeah.
so I was trying to do it, but then I couldn't help myself sometimes with adding some drums or adding this or that. But it still was
Sometimes
a
you just gotta scratch the itch, right?
yeah, yeah.
Well, the even inside of that, when you're thinking about if all you have is two instruments, a vocal and a guitar, or a vocal and a piano, that piano part can still be dynamic and still be arranged so that the song has ups and downs and tempo shifts and that kind of thing. Perfect example is someone like you from Adele. The
Mm,
way that he plays the piano hints at what a larger band could do. but
Hmm.
it never worked. They tried 2 times to do a fuller production, but it never worked. Like only the piano vocal version worked, and that's what we know and love. But
Wow.
listen to the piano and
So
you'll
they actually
hear
built it out and then took it back off.
twice. Yeah,
Wow. I love hearing those stories because I'm like, yeah, that's what I need to do. It's hard to do that. You know what I mean? When you put so much work into something
it
to
is.
then
Yeah.
to then kill it, it's hard to do. But that's good. That's cool. And that leads me to I wanted to ask you something that you learned during quarantine doing music like the way that you guys did. If you guys aren't familiar, you should check out. Where do they find all your quarantine stuff? Is it on the Denver Church of Christ YouTube channel or something?
Yeah.
So Travis was a part of producing all these great videos that a lot of churches in our family churches used during quarantine. And so I wanted to ask you kind of what you learned and how that process went about. So maybe while you're thinking about that, I something you said about the rule of thirds or keeping things simple. One thing I learned during quarantine, we did a few of those videos, but what we did a lot was live stream out of my garage and
Mm.
just have a couple musicians come over. And I learned what you said about trying to do stuff really simple. Like I heard some producer talk about how you always got to have a thump, pop, and a sizzle. And so like it doesn't have to be a drum that's doing that. It could be an acoustic that just has a little that's giving you the pop, and you're banging your foot on something that's the
Right.
thump, or you can do both with an acoustic. You can do thump, pop, and sizzle with an acoustic. But so I was thinking about that when we were doing these garage services where maybe the ukulele would kind of play the part of like a hi-hat, like was the strumming the top, and then my keys are kind of the low end, but it changes how you form it,
Yeah.
based on what part each is playing. And it really taught me to play more simply, to listen a lot more, because I came at worship leading from song leading, back in the 90s, where you're just as loud as you can be, and even the way I sing, it's just loud. And but in my garage that wouldn't translate over the live stream well. And it's
Mm.
just, I'm pitchy, it doesn't. So so learning to sing softer, learning to kind of blend better, learning to listen more, learning to be quieter, it was really good for me. I learned a lot during quarantine musically. So anyway, so I
Yeah.
was curious what you learned during quarantine doing all those videos, or some of these projects that you were doing. Is there anything that you learned from all that?
The probably the main thing I learned is I'm over 6 minute songs. Like once we pass 5 minutes, I'm out. Like I don't want to do
Okay,
anything.
that's good.
That's another keeping it simple kind of thing. But
Yeah.
um yeah, I don't know. It was really incredible to see what happened with those music videos because pandemic hit, we all had to go home, and my wife knew it would be 2 years, but nobody else did.
Oh,
It was
really?
like she's like, we'll be 2 years in this. Like, whatever. We'll give it a couple of weeks.
Is
But
she a medical professional?
no, she's just smart. She works in tech. She's awesome. Um,
Cool.
but it was just kind of like, oh, we got a couple of weeks. We got to do a live stream thing. We need some music. So let's make it happen. Like I have the tools. We have lots of people here who have the tools and the know-how to put something together between the audio and the video aspects. So it wasn't even really a large charge or anything that was like, let's go be big or whatever. It was just like, let's go make something good so that we can use it next
Yeah.
Sunday. We need 3 songs. Let's go. Come on. And as it became clear that we would be at home for a lot more time, we developed methods and ways to streamline that process or have more fun with it, if you will, or try new things. Um, but what ended up happening was all of a sudden somebody in Taiwan or Thailand or something would be on a Zoom call with me, be like, "Hey, you're playing bass in my church this week," and someone in
That's
Florida would be
awesome.
like, "I saw you on Sunday," and I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh!"
That's so
And
cool.
that was never the intention. It was never like, I hope this becomes world-renowned
Yeah.
music or anything like that. It was just like, we need this for this week, and oh, we're gonna need this every week. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it well. Let's do it excellently. And I think that's where God took it and made it go a lot of places. And the stories that I've heard from people being so grateful that they could have those on Sundays was
Yeah.
amazing. There was one guy who went through a terrible, terrible time in the past year and a half or 2 years or something like that. And he would turn on these music videos at night to go to sleep to, like just crank it and go to sleep.
Wow. That's
And
so
he's
cool.
so grateful he flew here to Denver and brought the team together for a fancy dinner.
Oh my gosh, that's
Like
incredible.
so next level, you know, and I never asked for that or meant for that, but I'm
Wow.
grateful that that impact could be made.
That is
Um,
so cool.
so that was just it. Again, just going for excellence and seeing what happened.
That is awesome. Yeah, it's so cool how when God takes something that you made and put out in the world and then uses it in some way you didn't envision. I mean, that definitely happened with me with some of my songs. I was just tired of singing Sanctuary. You know what I mean? So I'm like, so that's why I wrote I Need Your Love. I was just,
Right.
and it's just for my own little church. And in fact, the first time I tried to introduce it was at this regional service. I printed out sheet music, and then we were running over time, and so they're like, "Oh no, we're not gonna have time to do that song." So I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess." And you have that moment of, "Oh, it's just for God anyways. I guess we'll never use it." You know what I mean? And then,
Yeah.
but then I've heard translations of people singing that in like China or something. It's just crazy,
So
how
cool.
God uses it. So it's super cool how God you guys used you guys there in Denver, and even all of you together, like to have your ability with the mixing and the the audio, the ears that you have to kind of be able to produce an amazing product and not spend too much time on it. I know you disciplined yourself to only spending a certain number of hours, um, but it still sounds phenomenal. But then also, like you said, Ross is there and Julia's there and Aubrey's there and K Sam was there at the time and Tyler, and it was just an awesome team that happened to all be together there at once. That's just top notch. So it's
Yeah,
really cool.
amazing to be with those people.
And all of them like had good mics themselves too, right? I was making those videos with people's cell phones for the most part.
I mean, we were fortunate to be in a place where we would choose people who had the equipment to help us make
Yeah,
sure that the product was going to be good at the end.
that's cool. That's awesome.
So there were a couple times when we took a little, a cell phone audio or something like
Uh-huh.
that, but for the most part, we were going for something else.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, well, they those will live on. You know what I mean? Like your grandkids might be looking at those videos. Who knows?
That'd be pretty fun.
You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
those will last. Well, just to kind of wrap up, I just wanted to see if you had any advice for people who um, look at this blog or this YouTube channel. A lot of them might be aspiring worship leaders or in a church that's small. I know you gave the advice about going for excellence, having kind of a good work ethic, play to your strengths. Is there any other kind of parting word of advice that you might give to your old self there at the city ministry, or somebody who's kind of
totally.
new in leading worship or whatever?
Yeah, I think still going back to don't overdo it. Use what you have and find ways to be dynamic and useful with who you have, what you have, that kind of thing. And then also work on creating a culture and a group of people where it's really fun and it's really giving. And what I mean by that is get yourself out of the way. Don't be a self-indulgent. This is like be a vessel so that God can work. And I also mean go hang out with the tech people in the back of the room because you have a cohesive relationship. They can't do tech without the musicians. Musicians aren't going to sound like anything without the tech people. And so
Yeah, they're part of
you
the team. Yeah,
create a team atmosphere like that, then that I think that goes a long way, having myself been on both sides of the microphone.
yeah,
And
I agree 100% with that.
yeah, I think those things, I feel like I had another thing to say, but maybe not. That's it.
Keep smiling, right?
Right. Keep smiling.
Keep
Have fun with
shining.
it.
Well, can we, how would you feel about kind of tacking on the end of this video one of the Wild Goose songs? Would you be fine if I stick one on there?
Absolutely.
I could even share my screen and just play one. Um, let's see, music.youtube.com. We do YouTube TV, and so we get music YouTube as part of that. So I don't pay for Spotify,
Gotcha.
but you can see what I've been listening to here.
Oh, you see that Broward Worship one?
Yeah, this is good.
I mixed all those songs.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great album. I really like
It
it.
They did good on that.
Yeah. I've been listening to Steve Reich lately. You ever heard of this guy?
I have not.
Great composer. And then this John Baptiste album's really good.
Cool.
So Wild Goose, see, there it is. It's up there near the top. Wild Goose Chase. So search for Wild Goose Chase. Which song you want to do? You want to do your favorite one?
Yeah, we can do Before You Go.
Should I? Oops. I got a bunch of songs called Wild Goose Chase. I want the artist. So this is good to. I want song.
Yeah, we're not big enough to be the top hit. That's for sure.
Wild Goose Chase. So I want to go to artists. Here you go, artists. Wild Goose Chase. And then Before You Go. Do you want to talk us through it at all, or should I just play it?
This is it's very folky acoustic, but with a pop feel to it as well. And I love it because it's emotional. I'm a sucker for a sad song, and so this has that element to it, with a little bit of questioning and a little bit of a conflict to it. But the music doesn't let you be sad. It has that sort of uplifting, redemptive feature to it. So I don't know. It just feels so smooth to me. I love it. That's what I got.
Awesome. All right, I'll play it, and if it doesn't sound good on the recording, I'll just cut in, better version of it. But we'll see how it goes.
Sounds good.
Before you go, could you fill me in? Have you always known right where this would end? Fragile and need you, thought you needed me too. Like the air walked right out of my chest. So go on and leave. But before you go, help me believe this is better for us both somehow. I'm begging you, please take it back. You can turn around. God only knows what'll happen if you leave me now. So help me believe before you go. Before you go, go, go. Giving up, yeah, I know. It's like you're dying of thirst and toss your drink in the dirt. I can tell you just how bad it'll hurt. So go on and leave. But before you go, help me believe this is better for us both somehow. I'm begging you, please take it back. You can turn around. Before you go, before you go, 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 oh, 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 oh. Before you go, 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 oh, 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 oh. Before you go, 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 oh, 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 oh. Before you go, 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 oh, 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 oh. Help me believe this is better for us both somehow. I'm begging you, please take it back. You can turn around. God only knows what'll happen if you leave me now. So help me believe before you go. Before you go, go. Help me believe this is better for us both somehow.
Awesome. So good. Oops.
Thanks.
That's my third time hearing it. It's really good. It's
Thank
really
you.
cool. Anything you want to point out on that, listening back to it? There's a couple, I just love, I think I told you this before we were on the call or before we started recording, but I love that the breakdown to halftime on the, I don't know if you call it the chorus or if it's the after chorus. What do you call that part where you
I
come in
call it
with
a post chorus.
post chorus? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that moment. The whole song is really great. It's very catchy, but it was interesting listening with what you were saying about the rule of 3, you know, how you would bring stuff in and take and send it away and bring it back and stuff like
Right.
that. It was really, really well done. Really cool.
Yeah. It's interesting that you talk about that halftime piece because I agree that's when the song just sits in and
Yeah.
you get that whoa moment. That's fun. But I went back
It
and
stands out as more unique in that moment. You know what I mean?
right, yeah.
You're kind of like, okay, it's in this sort of Phil Phillips or whatever, you know, kind of like folky, poppy kind of thing. But then when that happens, you're like, oh, that's different. You know,
Right.
I like that moment.
Yeah. I went back and forth with Ross, whether the second time it comes around, whether it should happen right after the chorus or after the double time version of it. And so where the double time and the halftime version should live. So we kind of swapped those around a couple of times until we figured out which one felt right.
Yeah, well, it's a great construction. I also like at the end where it drops to just the vocal and then you build it all back in on the
Yep.
chorus. That's really, I mean, I know that's kind of something you hear often or we do a lot, but it really works. I mean, it's just, there's a reason that we do it because it's really cool.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, if you learn the rules
Yeah.
and know how things work, you can follow most of the rules and then break one or two of them for that
Break them
unique,
here or there. Yeah.
and then you've got something that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good. And I love your little muted guitar. It reminds me of the Police. I don't know if that's a thing in your mind, but in my brain, it's like that's the Police thing.
I will take a huge compliment there for sure.
Andy Sumner thing. So awesome. Well, great being with you, man. And please keep in touch, and I'll send you more music. And anytime you want to send me some to listen to, I'd be happy to. I know I send you a lot more than your way, so I owe you more than you owe me.
We'll even out the scales a little bit there. But thank you so much for having me. I feel so honored to have this conversation and know that other people will be listening to what I have to say.
Yeah.
This is really fun. Thank you.
Amen. Well, keep up the good work.
Thanks. You
Say
too.
hi to everybody in Denver.
For sure.
All right. We'll see you later. Enjoy the rest of your evening.